Okay, normal Friday live. Just going to warm up first. So once you come on, any questions down below. I'm going to have a bit of a training session, do a bit of everything as per usual for Fridays. First handstand of the day, see what we're dealing with. Ooh. So jump in with any questions if you have any already. Like I say, I'm not too warmed up yet. Let's do something for my calves, hamstrings. So a big fan of getting the calves involved, especially if you're pretty flexy already in the hammies. So elevate those toes up, lock those knees backwards, make them happy, add the hamstrings. Super comfy, do some bounces. So having this deep forward fold has made a massive difference in my handstand practice, in calisthenics in general. You know, just like I want to get an L sit on the floor or something like that, having good hamstring flexibility. It's massive handstand presses, obviously. And I'm talking from coming from this position as well, where I struggle to get my fingers to the floor. So I know what it feels like to be tighter in that position. Any questions? Nobody yet? How do I get rid of those emojis? That's it. How to get straight into handstand. My hips are always over my body during handstands. So most people try and open their shoulders too much in a handstand. So that's the most common one, is we think that we have to force our shoulders open. So what tends to happen then when we're in a position is we force our shoulders, but our hips compensate. So our hips are like over ourselves like this. But if I bring the shoulders forwards and do that, now I can put my hips back in the right place. So I would practice this as opposed to this. This makes us very, very top heavy. So my hips and my legs want to go over the top. So don't force your shoulders open underneath you. That's like standing like this or like this. We want to have the base in control. So shoulders, hands, elbows, fingies are doing all the work in the handstand. So when I kick up, notice my shoulders are forwards, they stay forwards. My feet and my hips stay backwards. I can push up to a straighter position, but I'm not doing that. I'm not forcing the shoulders underneath me. That's going to make you super unstable in the handstand. And you can practice that with all of your wall variations when you're learning to handstand. So just practice that position with the shoulders being here, hips being there, not as opposed to the opposite with the shoulders underneath and the hips over the top. So if we're practicing anything against the wall, I want to be in that similar position. So shoulders are forwards. That's going to allow me to stay in that position as opposed to this and this, because as soon as I come off the wall, I'm going to come down. Same this way around, shoulders forwards, hips back, not shoulders forwards, hips on top, because that's going to make us very, very top heavy. If you can master that, get your body in the right place, it makes the handstand so much easier. Any other questions, guys? Let's warm press and handstand push up. I'm bound to get some pressy handstand push up questions. Okay, whenever I walk into a handstand with my hands, of course, I try to get alignment. I feel like I'm going to fall to my back. Same thing basically as the comment before in terms of hip position. We want to make sure that our shoulders are dominant in the handstand. So head focal position, shoulder position, hands needs to be priority and very, very consistent. So if I go into my handstand entry, I have this set. So the shoulders on top of my hands, my head, my focal point is all stuck in that position. And then when I kick up, notice how everything is exactly the same. Even when I'm in the handstand hold, doesn't matter if I'm doing a different position, there'll be slight changes that happen to the shoulder from a mobility point of view, but that base stays exactly the same all the time. What you'll see when people are learning is they'll do this, they'll do this, they'll do this, they'll do this. So that inconsistency is massive. So number one, fix that, make it sure it's the same, whether you're doing freestanding, whether you're doing against the wall. That will make a massive difference on your consistency of catch, and then what you're dealing with in the handstand, make it very consistent. How strong do you need to be to have a good handstand? You just need to be conditioned in a handstand. So it's not necessarily about strength. It's really cool when I get different extremes, like in a class, when you have people that are older, females or compared to males, strong like CrossFitters, weightlifting background compared to someone who's just been doing yoga and not done any weight training. The yogi might have a better handstand than the strong person. So it's not a strength thing, it's consistency, conditioning of the handstand itself. So whatever level you're at, just try and increase your conditioning. So increase your time and then increase your progression of what you're doing, but don't go too crazy too fast. So you don't have, there's not like a set strength. Hey, boy, I'm 57 and started my handstand journey 9 months ago. Awesome. I seem to have reached a plateau. I can't get past a 10-second freestand hold. My kick-ups are also not consistent. I mean, a 10-second freestand hold is awesome, especially in that amount of time. So what I'd recommend you do is you want to assess both sides of your handstand. So how much overbalance control you have, how much underbalance control you have. I've just got a phone call. Let me get rid of that. So if I kick up to handstand this way, so back to walk, I want to see how much control I have off this side. So that overbalance, can I control that? And then can I do repetitions? Can I pull to a hold in between the handstand and the wall? So somewhere there. So that's how much overbalance control I have. And then I want to do the same with the underbalance. So this is great drills, but also great assessment. So looking for gaps. Exactly the same here. So pull from the shoulders. Can I do repetitions of that? So do I have the control in my underbalance? And then do I can have the control to hold in my underbalance? So you could do like 10, 15-second holds there, coming off your toe pull, off your heel pull. So off your underbalance, And that's just going to widen the window of balance. And then when you kick to it, you're going to have this bigger window to kick into. So that's how you'll get through a plateau. What happens with the plateaus is we were trained to a certain point and we're only conditioning a certain section. And then you'll find if you hang out in that small section, so it might be this big, but to get from a 10-second handstand to a 30-second handstand, we need to increase the window of balance, have more room for error. So normally increasing the balance on both sides of the handstand will do that. How to increase range of balance for handstand. That was perfect because I just answered that. So exactly what I just spoke about there, increasing that window of balance to both sides of the handstand. Hey, Paul, 34 and currently working on my one arm. Can do shoulders, minimum plus handstand, tuck and stuff. What would be optimal days for training versus rest in your opinion, considering I'm quite odd? I would, for one arm handstand, I would train as much as you can. So it's all about repetitions of good drills, as long as your body's happy to do it. I personally trained, so I unlocked my 10-second one arm. I was 38 and a half. So I was training every day, but I would alternate days between floor and blocks and just see how your body feels. So some days I would do longer sessions, some days I would do shorter sessions, and then occasionally I'd take a day off, but I was doing something every day for my one arm handstand. But I'm a big fan of alternating blocks and floor just because the blocks are much easier. And then once you're confident enough, if you have them, to use canes as well. But you don't want to get to a point where you do blocks and canes all the time and never do floor, because that's going to give you a block and cane one-arm handstand, but not a floor one-arm handstand. So I would do that. You just need to listen to your body. And that's the same for any level. We want to be going in at a lower rate to start with and then slowly increasing the volume depending on what our body can take. And that's different for everyone. But I would try and adjust the intensity by going between blocks and floor. But for one arm, you do need to be training 5 to 7 times a week. I just watch the volume of your sessions and how long they are. Because if you're training 2.5 hours, I'm training 2.5 hours a day. Yeah, see, that's very long sessions. I would cut that down to like 45 minutes, half an hour sessions, but do more of them. And then occasionally just do longer sessions. Planche question. In advanced tuck, my arms are locked. Okay. Straddle attempts, though, my arms bending. Do you have any advice other than just keep doing advanced tuck to build strength? Yeah, it's just your 1 rep max. It's like if we tested your 1 rep max of your squat, your knees would start to buckle in, your back would start to round, your technique would go downhill. Mine's exactly the same. So when I try like advanced straddle positions, playing with full planche positions now, my elbows bend. I can only hold it for like 1 second to 2 seconds. My elbows are bending. I've lost protraction, like it's ugly. So I wouldn't call that my working sets. My working sets are the ones slightly back on the progression line. So I would pyramid your training. So in your session, do quite a few working sets at advanced tuck position, then open up to like a frog, in between a frog and a straddle position, or a higher hip straddle position where it's slightly easier, and do less time, less sets, but just play around with it. Have a couple where you go crazy and see if you can get into like a nice straddle position. But your scapula, your elbows are probably going to bend. You're probably going to lose protraction. But then over time, that should slowly move up. So you will then start to do your frog, high hip straddle positions with better technique, but your next step up is still going to have the bad technique. So it's just like moving the goalpost slowly up. And think there's a massive difference between tuck, advanced tuck, straddle. Like there's all these in between. So you might have advanced tuck here and straddle here. You want to go somewhere in between the two. So that's why those froggy positions are really useful. So if I demo a tuck position now, and then advanced tuck, and then straddle. So there's like massive difference. So there's this tight position, advanced tuck, straddle. There's all these little increments in between. Try and go somewhere in between. Don't think you have to go all the way out to the advanced position. I think there's like 10 steps before there. And I'd also play with dynamic movements as well, not just the statics. I train handstands every day for an hour with a deload week and followed by my other workout. Is that too much? Again, you just got to go with what feels right for you. Because everyone, like some people will train for an hour and an hour. Someone's intensity will be 150%. Someone else's will be 50%. So the hour doesn't really mean anything. It's how intense it is for you and what your body's used to over the years. So increasing the intensity slowly and then just going up and down on how your body's feeling and how you're progressing. So if you're not making any progress, then you need to change something. If you're making really good progress, don't change anything. Also, my right wrist pains whenever I try push up to handstand. I tried wrist exercises and it is getting better. But do you have any other thoughts? So normally wrist pain is because of overloading in the wrist area, and that can be sometimes through lack of mobility somewhere else in the body. So if your like upper back's really tight, your shoulders are tight, if you're hanging out in a position that's not ideal, not efficient, then the load will get stuck in the weakest link or where all the load is. So it might not be a wrist issue, it might be an issue somewhere else that's putting too much intensity into the wrist. So that's common. You can create more space normally by externally rotating and taking the hands a little bit wider. Most people go too close, too narrow, and it means their body buckles. If we go and find a good position here, over time it will come closer together, but most people will try and go too close. Internal rotation, so external rotate, go a little bit wider. That can normally help wrist issues, and make sure that you're training on a surface that suits your body. Like I'm a big fan of training on a harder surface, not a softer surface, especially if you feel wrist pain. I train for 15 minutes daily. Is it good? Yes, it is good if you're getting progress. So if you're making progress, whatever you're doing is correct. If you're not making progress or you're having symptoms like pain or something, then what you're doing is wrong. So it's very individual and impossible to answer that, but you can answer it. So just assess yourself, assess your progress. Tried crow to single leg extensions with 2 to 3 second holds with some success. Notice I'm very weak in the 90-degree elbow position and beyond. Trying to incorporate deficit handstand push-up and elevated box. Yeah, deficits will be really good on the elevated on the box. So they're fantastic. Doing really slow eccentrics through the ranges of motion that you want to get to. And also try and check that your body position is helping you. So in something like a handstand push-up, if you're slightly too far underbalanced or slightly too far overbalanced, it makes it like near on impossible. But if you're in the sweet spot, so like if you watch how I come out of a crow position into a handstand, so I'm going to do everything to help me now to make this as easy as possible. And I'm going to continue talking so you can tell how hard it is. So I'm doing things now to make this as easy as possible. Now, if I change that and make things as hard as possible, now things are much, much harder to get up just by delaying my hips and my legs. So I left my hips and my legs behind and I was dragging them up. So that made that much, much harder. Where if you tip, get the underbalance correct, push at the right time, so the underbalance is helping you and you're like falling into a handstand, that's easier. Obviously, you could fall too far and splat and hurt yourself. But sweet spot for handstand push-ups is massive. And that's the difference between, someone getting 1 repetition or being able to get 10 repetitions. So a lot of the time it's not strength, it's normally efficiency. I should learn bent arm press or straddle handstand press. I can hold 15, 25 second hold. I would start working your strength towards those movements while you're also doing your handstand balance. We need some priorities. So handstand balance needs a lot of volume. So I'd increase handstand balance sessions. But at the same time, so if your handstand sessions are like 4 or 5 a week, I would do 2 to 3 a week of strength sessions. Both press and handstand push-up work, whatever progression you can do. So, and it can be quite simple. You can just pick 1 strength exercise for press, 1 strength exercise for handstand push-up, mobility to go along with that. But then you could just do 5 sets of 5 of that strength work. And then once you have your handstand balance, or as it increases, you can then unlock more drills. And then when you have a good handstand balance, you'll also have, well on the road for your press and your handstand push-up. Hey, Richard, hope you're well, buddy. Could you provide some advice on increasing the balance window when starting the pike press or straddle press handstand? Yeah, so you just need time under tension throughout the range of motion. So the easiest way to do that is eccentrics for most people. So just coming down as slow as possible through the movements. The top part is easier because you can hang out there with less strength. So you just basically hold your handstand and then just hang out in that position. So if I go into the straddle press, it's easier to demo. So if I hold this straddle handstand, now that should be nice and comfortable for you if you're doing straddle press. And then from there, I can then practice holding this position, which is much heavier because my legs and my hips are starting to roll over. And then I just do the same thing here. So efficiency, again, trying to find balance. So I'm taking the shoulders far enough forwards, keeping the hips high enough, and then just trying to find where your gaps are and like flirt with them, go on the edge of them and try and hang out there for time. It's going to be tricky, especially if you're missing big gaps. Eccentrics on the wall obviously help as well, but you can go somewhere in between. So you can do the eccentrics on the wall and have a very, very light touch as you come down. So a lot of people, when they're learning handstand press, they just put way too much weight into the wall, which is fine to start with. But then when we're on the edge of trying to balance the position, we also need to be super, super light on the wall and only use it when you need to. So ideally it would be freestanding, but if you're not getting enough time under tension, jump on the wall. I've unlocked my middle and front splits, awesome, but I want to push it to the point where I can get close to full range with full set. Would you make keeping the same routine or change anything? Again, if you're making progress, continue whatever you're doing. So again, I can't really give specifics without assessing, but I recommend, so that's like a golden rule. If you're making progress, keep doing what you're doing. If you stop making progress, but you was making progress, only change a couple of little things, and then that should keep taking you. You want full range in the first set. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so basically what we need to do then is you need to visit positions more often. So if you want first set flexibility, like I haven't done no flexibility work today apart from that forward fold I done right at the start. So a good example is my straddle. So my seated straddle at the moment is that. So that's now where it's at. But once I've warmed up, I can get belly button to the floor and have a flat spine. But at the moment, it's going to take me 1 to 2 minutes to get to that position. Now, if I wanted that flat and it was better than this, I would just spend more time in there daily. I'm doing more work on my computer now every day, so my flexibility is not as good as it was, but I maintain it, but it's not at the same level. So I would just visit the position more if you want cold positions, especially in a handstand. Like if you want full middle splits in a handstand, you need to train over splits, and then you need to visit the split position more often. So your body just hangs out there. Is the straddle planche negatives worth it? Or should I just keep doing planche progressions? Do you mean handstand to planche negatives? I'm not sure what you mean by planche negatives. Thanks for advice. I want to learn handstand on parallettes and straight bar, but it seems so different and difficult. Can you make tutorial on those too? I've got tutorials on both of those. I've done a parallette one quite recently in terms of handstand balance, and then I've got the straight bar handstand as well. It's probably about a year old. But if you just search my name and P bars, I think I put it as they'll come up. And then straight bar handstand, and just put my name and you'll find it on YouTube. Love to Rosie. Yeah, she's there. She's on her bed enjoying the sunshine. In the chest wall handstand push up, how close should your hands be to the wall? So you want to mimic the pathway of the handstand push up. The hardest thing with the chest wall handstand push up is entering and exiting the position. Normally exiting the position. But if I'm going to do one, I have to turn the hat around. And then the sweet spot, if I'm trying to mimic, is probably around there for me. So that's like 3 hand spaces away. And that means I can open the shoulders at the top. I can come down, make that triangle, and then I can push back up. And notice my toes floated for a second off the wall. I don't have to do that, obviously, if you're worried about falling out. But having the toes super light as you go up and down is mimicking the freestanding position. Now that will be variable, depends on your setup, how much you like to create a triangle at the bottom, because everyone does a handstand push-up slightly different. Like if my hands are here and my shoulders are there, when it comes down, it creates an angle. If I take it further away, the angle's bigger. If I take it closer, the angle's steeper. So you need to sort of fit your body and what you prefer. I've been practicing back to wall handstands. Would it be better to practice face to wall, or does it not really matter? I do both. Most people, when they're first starting, they are too scared to actually do chest to wall with any quality. So I do chest to wall handstand holds, build conditioning, build time in that position, and then slowly change that over to more toe pull type movements where you're pulling the toes away from the wall for the underbalance. But if you've got someone to spot you or you're confident, I would definitely do both straight away. So I'll be working back to wall for overbalance and chest to wall for underbalance. I can do bent arm handstand, but can't hold handstand. I don't know how, but I can just do bent arm handstand. Yeah, so that just means you're using strength. That's really, really common. So we just need to increase your straight arm conditioning. So again, go back to the wall version for clean technique. So whenever you're trying to make something, like if you've already got something, but you want something slightly different. So say you want to train on parallettes and you can do a floor handstand, you just have to drop back to the earlier progressions on how you learned the skill and then do it there. So if you want to do a different variation, go back to the wall, chest to wall, work through those drills again, but just with that different variation, whether it's blocks, P-bars, if you're trying to fix something. I'm having trouble with toe pulls. My wrist feels like it's done full range of motion and my shoulders don't go forward enough. So it's hard to get my feet off the wall. Any tips? Yeah, this is really common. So all I'd make sure you do is that you take your hips with you. So a lot of people, especially because the body doesn't want to go that way, it's scared, it doesn't want to back splat, so it's going to subconsciously try and save you. And the way it saves you is it sinks back towards the wall. So if my shoulders and my head are coming forwards, if my hips do this, I can't come off the wall. So see, my hips are dropping back towards the wall. But if I take my hips with me as the shoulders go forwards, now my toes have come off and I can go into that position. So it's the difference between this happening and this happening. So hips coming off. Very, very common. It will make a massive difference. Just set that hip a little bit further away. Take the hip with you. Get someone to stand there and spot you if need be, because that's just builds confidence. Where were we? On the road to press handstands, but just as I'm about to lift off, I collapse all the time. It's frustrating. Any tips? So you just need to hang out in that position more. So jumps can help. So just slowly going into the position. Straddle hops, where you just hop off the floor a little bit and come back down again. You just need to build confidence. The same thing as the toe pulls, where the body's scared because your feet come off. It feels like you're going to face plant. So you just need to hang out here more. So building conditioning in this position, taking legs off, like little jumps, clapping. You could jump all the way to handstands. You could do the little hops. So these ones, forwards and backwards. Just build time and conditioning in that position. Give yourself a little buffer. So a little raise your toes slightly up on a yoga block or something. So it feels like you're in that position. You just need to spend more time there. Things like training planche and stuff will help as well. So increasing the upper back strength and the protraction planche position. Hello, Paul. When I'm doing handstand, I can't engage my legs. It's just hanging there and I can't squeeze them in together. Any tips? I wouldn't particularly worry about that unless the legs are taken over. If the legs are trying to take over and balance you, it's fine just to have them sticking there. That's like probably better. What you don't want to do in a handstand is have your legs trying to take control. So I kick up into handstand, and if my legs are just hanging there, that's fine. Like that might look better when you squeeze them together, but what's probably happened is when you try and squeeze them together, suddenly the legs try and take over. It's like when you're standing and your head and your shoulders are trying to take over, you can't stand up then. So you want the shoulders and the arms to be dominant and be the controller of the handstand. So I wouldn't particularly worry about that unless it's causing issues. And if it is causing issues, you just back off to slightly easier progression. So either get someone to spot you or go to the wall, do your heel pulls, toe pulls against the wall. Who are your coaches besides Yuval and Ido? Who do you think are the best for amateur but serious hand balancers? The best coach is someone you can find in person. That's what I'd recommend you do. So I initially trained with Ido and then went to Yuval specifically for handstands. So I was with Ido about 12, 18 months. Then I went with Yuval. I done a workshop with him, done online coaching with him, stayed at his house for a while and done some in-person sessions that were really, really good. But all of those are learning how to create self-practice and take ownership of it yourself, and then just calling in people, researching, trying things out. And the big thing that helped me, because that was like 10 years ago, the big thing that helped me was coaching. So when I'm coaching people, so every day I'm PTing people, I was doing multiple classes per week. So I learned from teaching others. That was really useful. I done some sessions, some online coaching with Daniel Liddard. He's an amazing one-arm handstand coach. I went to lots of workshops. Mikhail. Yeah, there's lots of people that I've like learned from, researched, but the main thing is just constantly keep practicing, and like videoing yourself, working out what you're doing, what you need to do, what that next progression is, what the progression is before. And I say coaching was probably one of the biggest things that helped me, but it is really self-ownership, and then ideally working with someone in person. So either if you're doing online coaching, so they can critique your videos and actually tell you what you're doing instead of what you think you're doing, or in person is just amazing to have someone there in the moment teaching you. But most places in the world don't have someone close by. That's the only thing that makes that challenging. But this type of training is very much a self-practice. So it's taking ownership of it, becoming passionate about it, and just trying to learn that way. If I want to get a freestyle handstand, how often should I be practicing? My plan is to do two per week, or should I do more? So start off with whatever you're doing. So a lot of people that will come to so I only teach one class now because I've backed off. I'm doing a lot more online coaching now. I only do one class a week, and I get a lot of people that come to that class and they hit a certain level coming into one class per week. And then they just get stuck. So the plateau kicks in because they need to do another session. So at that point, you need to increase to 2 sessions per week, make progress, and then you can add to 3 sessions a week, 4 sessions a week, 5 sessions a week. I wouldn't start off on 6 or 7 sessions a week, but most people that are training higher level skills like one-arm handstands and things like that, they're doing that. They've taken self-ownership of the thing, and then they're practicing, daily, and they become quite nerdy about it. They study it. So it's just slowly increasing the volume as you progress. If you're making progress, you're fine as you are, and then just slowly keep increasing the sessions. But it's very individual. I want to transfer my calisthenics progress to beat boying. Is it a good idea to train calisthenics mainly for the carryover? And yeah, you could train both. A lot of them are, I'm not really understanding breakdancing too much. I've seen it in person. I'm super impressed with it, but it's very different. There's a certain strength components that carry over in both directions very well, because I've seen people swap to doing one, like that Mikhail. He came from a breakdancing background and then went into one-arm handstands and circus and stuff. Yuval was a high-level gymnast and went into static handstands and hand balancing. So the biggest thing that takes you forwards in these skills is passion. So I'm passionate about handstands, handstand push-ups, presses and stuff, and that's why I've got so good at that, because I'm nerdy about it. I constantly want to train it. So I would just follow your passions, and if you want to be doing breaking, then I would be doing that constantly all the time now, and just enjoy it. That's what it's about. Talking about playtime, can you do baby crow press? I'm not sure what baby crow press is. Is a baby crow when your forearms are on the floor? So I think it might like. Is this a baby crow like that? If it is, I don't think I could get up to. I take it you go up to forearm stand there? I don't know. So I don't really know what that is. So I maybe be able to do it if I've got the flex. Also, would you say mobility, flexibility is important to get into freestand handstand? I think I notice I can't get my hands that as close to my feet as you can. Yes, flexibility makes everything easier, but you can handstand now. You just need to compensate for any tightness. So if you're tighter, you need to take your hands wider. You maybe need to bend your elbows a little bit. So you just need to allow your body to compensate as needed to handstand. So like a tight person's handstand is going to look very different than a flexible person's handstand. So a tight, stronger person is going to handstand like this. A more flexible person is probably going to handstand more like this. So what you don't want to do is train like the other person. So you need to train how your body needs to train, or handstand how your body needs to handstand. Don't try and mimic someone else's. So really find what suits you best. Hello from Brazil. Yeah, I don't know if I can put translate on that. No, I can't. This doesn't let me translate from here. So if anyone can translate that comment for me, I could answer it. I live in Sydney. The talent pool ain't amazing close to compared to WA. Yeah, Perth is like amazing for handstand coaches. Like every suburb has someone training handstands, which is awesome. It's probably, as far as I'm aware and what I've been told, Perth is probably one of the biggest population of hand balance calisthenics coaches in the world in a small, comparatively small city. What would be 5 top cues for someone to have the perfect 2-arm handstand perfectly straight? Mobility and practicing increasing the balance window. So that when I talk about increasing the balance window, most people's is that big. We want to make it that big by increasing that overbalance and underbalance, doing the back to wall, chest to wall drills, get amazing at doing that. And then if you increase your flexibility to a point where you can get into a straight handstand, then your straight handstand will not only be straight, it will be super strong. How to train bent arm handstand. I'm not sure what you mean by bent arm handstand. A bent arm handstand in terms of a handstand balance is a very inefficient handstand. So I wouldn't particularly train it. Some people have to train a bent arm handstand because they literally can't straighten their arms above their head. So their handstand looks slightly bent. If you mean the bottom of a handstand push-up to hold that, then it's just holding there for time, first in a pike position and then stepping into it. So I'm not sure what you mean in terms of bent arm handstand. Is that for handstand push-up or for balance? Guys, I've got like 2 minutes and then I'm going to have to disappear today. So if there's any other questions. 50-year-old and has a handstand down, but he is working on standing up straight. He said it looks like a banana right now. Yeah, I put out a video on that not that long ago. Basically, we just need to open the body up with mobility and then push to like 80, 90% of your handstand. So the wall will tell you a lot in terms of balancing from the wall. That will give you your best possible position in terms of a straight handstand. So a lot of people will balance in a banana-like handstand because it's easier to balance for them and they learn to balance that way. So if you learn to balance in this position, even if you have the flexibility to do that, you might not have the balance to do that. So to relearn the handstand, when you have the ability to do that from a mobility side, you then have to practice here. Instead of being like this on the wall, push up to the wall. But notice I'm still holding a conversation. So it doesn't want to be 100% intensity. You should still be able to talk while you're doing this. But you can then slowly teach your body a better position for your handstand. And you have to relearn the balance in that straight position. But I've got lots of videos on doing that. Hanging is awesome for increasing that mobility. And I put one out recently on just overhead mobility, just to make that much easier, which will often strain it out. Okay. Oh yeah. Body cues in terms of point your toes, tuck your ribs, active through pelvis. I'm not a big fan of using any of those. All I think about is reaching tall with the toes, because what can tend to happen is when we, if I say stand with good posture, so if you're standing like this, and I tell you to bring your shoulders back and down, open your chest, you might do that. But now I've taken my hips forwards, and then you say correct the hips, and then I start dancing. So I start moving in these directions. But if I just said to you, like, have a book on your head and stand up really tall, or just grabbed you by the hair and pulled you up, then suddenly everything just tidies up. So it's exactly the same when I'm in a, where's my camera too high? Exactly the same as when I'm in a handstand. If my body position isn't great, but all I'm thinking about is I'm going to reach with my toes towards the sky while I push into the floor with my hands. Look, my hands, everything's fixed itself. But if I try and change the shoulder or the hip or point the toes, see, it's all like it's all segments all trying to do their own thing. So think about one segment, reaching as tall as you can. So you extend like that, then it'll be much better. I can hold a straight forearm stand, but no luck on balancing a handstand. Any insight into why that is? Just base support is much, you're closer to the floor, and then your base support is now much bigger. that compared to that is massive. So you can rock forwards and backwards. So if I said balance on your fingertips, you'd say that's impossible because the base support is tiny. Hands makes it easier. Forearm makes it easier again. Locks the shoulders down, brings it closer to the floor. It's just much, much easier. It's like a crow is much easier than a forearm stand. So everything's coming down towards the floor. The base support is big. Guys, I'm going to have to disappear. It's been fun. Keep sticking any comments down. I'll try and reply to the comments later on. Reach out if you have any questions. If you're interested in my app, link is down in the description. And I will speak to you soon. Thanks, guys.